All right, so let's just dive right into this Taylor Swift deep dive.
Yeah, let's
You
have
sent over a really interesting mix of articles
I hate it.
about her, about Taylor Swift.
Mm.
Everything from
Yeah.
like her public image
Yeah.
to like all her relationships,
Mm.
and then how all those relationships get talked about,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
both by your exes and like in the media.
Yes, definitely.
That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, it really is. And I think what's so fascinating is how you have these like almost polar opposite views of Taylor.
Yeah.
Like on one hand, you've got this like globally adored pop icon
Right.
with millions of devoted fans.
Huge.
But then there's this other side,
Yeah.
this like intense scrutiny
Yeah.
and criticism, particularly when it comes to her dating life.
Totally. And it's like some people can't just like enjoy the music.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I know exactly.
They get so caught up in like dissecting her personal life.
Mm.
Like one article I was reading even had a comment calling her like a boy crazy psychopath,
Oh, wow.
which I don't know, just feels
Yeah.
unnecessarily harsh, even for the internet.
It's a bit much.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think about like the unique pressures and judgments faced by women in the spotlight,
Yeah.
especially musicians, you know?
Totally.
It's almost like a tale as old as time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If you think about how many female artists throughout history have been both revered for their talent, but then like simultaneously vilified
Right.
for expressing their experiences with love and relationships through their art.
Yeah.
It's like this double standard that's just like really tough to shake.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's like that expression of experience, right?
Yeah.
Those like personal narratives that are like woven into her music
Yeah.
that I think really make Taylor
Totally.
like such a compelling artist.
Absolutely.
And speaking of which, the articles that you sent,
Yeah.
the one from Marie Claire,
Okay.
it does like a really interesting like chronological analysis
Yeah.
of how her lyrics about sexuality
Yeah.
have like evolved over the years.
Yes. I thought that piece was really insightful.
Oh, totally.
And I think it really highlights how she's navigated this like really tricky path,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, yeah.
Especially as a young woman in the music industry.
For sure.
Like she's never shied away from expressing desire,
Right.
but she's also like done it in a way that feels really authentic to her own journey. You know what I mean?
Totally. And you see this like gradual shift
Yeah.
in her lyrics
Totally.
from like those really early songs,
Yeah.
like about innocent crushes to like
Yeah.
way more mature themes
Mm.
of like intimacy and agency.
Right.
Like, remember Teardrops on My Guitar
Of course.
from her like debut album?
Yeah.
It's all very much like from the perspective of a teenager
Yeah.
experiencing first love for like the first time.
Sure.
Very relatable, very innocent.
Exactly.
And then like fast forward to something like Red
Yes.
a few albums later.
Yeah.
The emotions are still like raw and real.
Right.
But there's this like newfound confidence
Totally.
in how she owns those experiences.
Absolutely.
Like this isn't just like a heartbroken teenager anymore.
Yeah.
It's like a woman understanding her own power
Right.
within a relationship.
Yes.
Like I love that.
It's great.
And it's not just about like the emotional maturity,
Uh-huh.
but it's also like how those themes of desire and sexuality
Yeah.
are like woven into the music itself.
Totally.
Like in Blank Space.
Yeah.
She's like literally poking fun at the media's portrayal
It-
of her like love life.
Yes.
Turning the narrative on its head.
Yeah, I love that.
It's playful, it's self-aware,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like incredibly catchy.
It's a great song.
So good.
It's really brilliant because by owning that narrative,
Yeah.
she's like reclaiming the power dynamics
Totally.
that are often like imposed on female artists.
Yeah.
So it's like instead of letting others define her,
Yeah.
she's like taking control of the story.
Yeah.
And I think that's like incredibly empowering.
Totally.
And not just for her as an artist, but like for her fans as
Right.
well.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Totally. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've talked about like Taylor's perspective,
Yeah.
but then there's this whole other layer
Yes.
to her like relationship narrative.
Yeah.
And it's coming from like a pretty surprising source.
Okay.
Her exes,
Right.
this Daily Star article, it like dives head first
Yeah.
into some pretty personal confessions
Okay.
from some of Taylor's exes.
Yeah.
And it's like juicy,
Okay.
a little cringy.
Yeah.
And honestly, like
Right.
it makes you wonder why some of these guys felt the need to share this stuff.
It's sure it's one thing for Taylor to like weave her experiences into her music,
Right.
but then like hearing these guys divulge intimate details, even if they're trying to be discreet, like it does feel a bit different, doesn't it?
It does. It's like
Yeah.
Joe Jonas talking about incorporating whips and leather into the bedroom.
Okay.
It's like, okay, that's
Yeah.
definitely TMI for me,
Right.
but it also feels a little unfair to Taylor, you know?
It does raise those questions about like respect and discretion even after a relationship ends,
Totally.
especially when you consider the potential power imbalance, you know?
Totally.
Like Taylor Swift is a global superstar.
Huge.
Her exes, while successful in their own right, don't necessarily have that same level of public profile.
Right.
So, like, sharing these intimate anecdotes, even if they're framed positively, could be seen as a way to capitalize on her fame.
Totally.
It's like this tricky ethical line to navigate.
It is. And, it's interesting because while, like, some of these exes are out there spilling the tea,
Right,
Taylor's response has really been all about, like, taking back her narrative.
right.
This Unilat article that you sent
Yeah.
talks about how she, like, directly addressed,
Yeah.
like, all those rumors
Yeah.
about her sexuality.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
refusing to let other people define her.
Exactly. And it really highlights, I think, this really interesting tension between like
Yeah.
public perception and then like personal truth.
Totally.
You know,
Yes. Yeah.
because she's been subjected to like endless speculation
Oh, sure.
about who she is and like who she dates. But
Yeah.
instead of letting those rumors control the narrative,
Yeah.
she's choosing to address them on her own terms.
I love that.
Yeah.
Whether that's through her music or in, like, direct statements, like with Lavender Haze.
Yeah.
Some people interpreted that as, like, a coming out anthem,
Right.
but then she, like, shut that down pretty quickly,
Yes.
saying it was actually about, like, blocking out all that noise
Totally.
and, like, focusing on a love that felt true to her.
Exactly. She's like reclaiming her agency.
Yes.
And I think that's particularly powerful when you think about how often society tries to like police
Right.
women's narratives, especially around love and sexuality.
Absolutely.
It's like she's saying my experiences are mine to share or not share as I see fit.
Totally. And it's such a, like, powerful message.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've talked about Taylor,
Yeah.
her exes,
Right.
and how they've, like, all chosen to navigate this, like, very public relationship saga.
Yes, very much so.
But then you sent over this article about Travis Kelce, who's an NFL tight end.
Yeah, that's right.
And it seems like he has a very different approach
Uh-huh.
to talking about his personal life.
He does.
The Mirror Online article
Right.
really dives into some of his, like, past confessions.
It does.
And there's, like, a stark contrast, I think,
Yeah.
compared to how Taylor has, like, historically
Yeah.
approached these topics.
You're sure?
Like, this is a guy who will, like, casually joke about losing his virginity at 14.
Right.
Like, it's definitely a different energy.
It is, and it's interesting because I think this is where those double standards that we've been talking about become really apparent.
Totally.
Like Kelsey's openness about like sex, relationships, even some of those like more eyebrow-raising confessions
Right.
are often seen as like this charming and relatable aspect of his persona.
Oh, for sure.
But would we react the same way if a woman in a similar position of fame were so candid?
That's a good point.
It's something to consider.
It is. So we've covered a lot of ground here today.
We have.
Like, we've explored the evolution of Taylor Swift's music.
Yes.
The complexities of her public image.
Mm-hmm.
The narrative surrounding, like, all of her relationships.
Yeah,
And the double standards that are so often placed upon women in the spotlight.
absolutely.
I think, like, what stands out to me most from this entire deep dive
Yeah.
is how differently we still treat men and women
Yes.
when they choose to be open about their experiences.
Totally.
Like, it's 2024,
It is.
and we still haven't quite figured out how to have these conversations
Right.
in a way that's both respectful and empowering for everyone.
I think that's a really great point to end on.
Yeah. It kind of makes you wonder if we'll ever get there.
Who knows, but like hopefully someday.
Fingers crossed.